Bum 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 bum. Da na 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 da na 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 na. Whoa! Toys are alive. Aloha, nerds, and welcome back to another episode of the TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction. I am your host, TheSalawag, and on this show I talk about things I just watched and react from the gut. I have had the pleasure of watching the 90s animated series Silver Surfer from Marvel. I believe it appeared on Fox, I'm not 100% sure. I love 90s cartoons. The 90s is my time. I believe it's still the best age of animation in terms of storytelling and the quality of the animation living up to that storytelling. I think now sometimes we surpass one or the other with a lot of animation, but I think in the 90s we have a lot of great examples. The Batman animated series is one of the best animated series of all time. And this is a children's program, but the writing is very mature and the material is very mature. And it's just the situations are kept light enough that, kids can watch and parents won't be upset. So that's a real testament to what the filmmakers were doing at the time. I remember hearing that for the Spider-Man cartoon, most people, if you're from the 90s, if you're around my age watching this, probably grew up with the X-Men cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon, and that was like the epitome of what a fun show should be. You had the Batman animated series, and in terms of American television, you had Batman, you had Spider-Man and X-Men, and those were kind of the main ones of like held up as this is great entertainment for both for kids and for anybody who could be watching it because it's so well made. I think Batman still stands as probably the highest long-running animated series for children, being considered great art and being considered worthy of being watched today. But I got another one for you, and it's The Silver Surfer. This show was developed for television by Larry Brody. This guy's written for Spider-Man Unlimited. Anyone remember that one? That was right after the animated series. Went straight to Unlimited. He's written for Spawn, that had Keith David Goliath as the voice of Spawn. He wrote for Star Trek Voyager, Streets of San Francisco, Hawaii Five-0, $6 Million Man, Star Trek the Animated Series. Here's a guy with a lot of writing credits. And I gotta say, kudos to those credits all bleed and lead perfectly into Silver Surfer. This is a one-season show, and it shows us the origin of Silver Surfer and his sort of initial adventures into space after becoming Silver Surfer. And it's I cannot tell you, it's a really great show. This deserves to be a Why It's Great, but I don't have a DVD or commentaries to go off of to really give you like a detailed video just for gut reaction's sake and for getting it out there. Silver Surfer is a fantastic show. I remember seeing this as a kid. I probably saw the first couple episodes and was like, this is not for me. Because the way this show starts off, I feel, is perfect for someone who's been watching the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the last 10 years. Because Marvel really does have an expansive universe of characters and scenarios and situations going on that's so dense, to even know what's going on. I think the MCU is a great way, really, to just break in the newbies. Because now, having watched 10 years of the MCU, when I started watching Silver Surfer now, recently, just out of curiosity, because I was like, wait a minute. Isn't that thing from that Fantastic Four movie? That Silver Surfer guy, he was cool. Okay, let's check that out. And, right from the first episode, it was genuinely wonderful storytelling and great dialogue, great characters. We meet Silver Surfer as Norrin Rad, who is basically one of the best, most enlightened students, a pupil to the master of Zenlaw. Zenlaw is their planet, and it's basically a peaceful planet that, it looks sort of Indian, it looks sort of Eastern, it kind of has this very otherworldly quality to it, but also definitely feels Eastern in some kind of sense in terms of the style and the philosophy. And, to the credit of the writing, they fit a lot into this movie, giving us very good characters while also compressing and telling us what the philosophy is, both of our main characters and of all the characters that they interact with. And it's really something how it starts off like a Twilight Zone episode where the Watcher, if you don't know who the Watchers are, I believe they appeared in the Spider-Man cartoons way back in the 90s as well. But the Watchers appear whenever something of cosmic significance is going to happen. And it starts off with this sort of Twilight Zone-y introduction where the Watcher's introducing Galactus and Galactus's destruction of other worlds. And essentially this looming threat is coming for Zenn-La. And on Zenn-La, Norrin Radd is just hanging out, adoring a spaceship, imagining going out into space, and he has a little scene with his girlfriend, Shalla-Bal, and, this sort of conflict is sort of introduced right up front that he has dreams of going beyond this planet, but he is kind of he is the best student who can pass on the teachings of his master and help people find inner peace within themselves. And this planet, as the story unfolds, we learn has a huge role in bringing peace to warring nations and bringing peace to, planets at war and people who are simply conflicted amongst themselves. People come to this planet to find peace and become better people and more functional people and return to their homes. And that's exemplified right away with our introduction to Norrin Radd is the introduction of 2 spaceships. And upon seeing them, Norrin Radd's like, a Kree ship and a Skrull ship? What are they doing here? And right there, so if you've been watching the MCU, you know what a Kree is from Captain Marvel. And if you have been watching Marvel for the last 20 years, you know what a Skrull is from all the internet chatter from the Fantastic Four movies. Are they going to introduce the Skrull? What are they going to introduce the Skrull? When Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer came out, and there was graphic art that suggested maybe a Skrull would be coming. I remember just all the heat and the excitement for a potential Skrull, because I guess they are big villains of the Fantastic Four, of a potential Skrull episode. And then we get the Skrulls in Captain Marvel as the villains. We didn't see Galactus in the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer movie, and we didn't see we didn't see Silver Surfer's origin in that movie either. We saw Silver Surfer played by Doug Jones fantastically and voiced beautifully by Lawrence Fishburne. And that became my Silver Surfer. I was like, oh, that's what this guy is? And I do remember at that time, this was just before the economic collapse in 2008, that whole series of movies sort of led me into reading more comic books. I eventually had a little short box of my own, and I picked up the sort of Death of Silver Surfer series. I don't think I ever finished it because of the collapse, but it was a great little series. He had this fantastic interaction where Silver Surfer was dying, and he came and talked to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man said, do you have the power to give everyone in the world just 5 seconds of peace? Just 5 seconds of complete peace? And Silver Surfer did, and he lit up the entire planet, and every being on Earth had 5 seconds of peace. And you get to see just afterward what it did to them. There was something magnificent about it. And even that request goes right to the core of who Silver Surfer is. Because this is a fantastic character. The idea that this is essentially a Buddha. The Silver Surfer is a Buddha type of character. He's a guy who's all about enlightenment and inner peace and spreading the word of peace and enlightenment to others. And that's the goal of Zenn-La and the Master and Shalla-Bal, his girlfriend. That's their goal. That's their whole life. It's everything they live for. And when the Kree and Skrull show up, it's revealed, okay, these guys have been at war for a while. In the show, they say neither one has won the war. They're both constantly at this sort of gridlock with each other and never get a foothold over the other. But the two ships that land, their commanders have come to find some kind of middle ground. And they've come to Zenlaw to help them find inner peace with each other. Or peace between the two races. And it's very clear that it's not 100% peaceful when the Kree talks to the Master. He's like, I'd love to know all about your travels, Norinrad. And Norinrad's like, you're here for peace. Like, even Norinrad, as much as he's meant to be this Buddha, he's not stupid. He's aware of who these people are and what kind of stuff they get up to. You know, he's not naive to the universe. And the Skrull, who are like, I may be flipping who's saying what, but the Skrull's like, we're more honored than the Kree are because we accepted your invitation first. So they're already like just having a little conflict with each other, which is very good character writing. As my screenwriting teachers would say, character is conflict, conflict is character. And story is character, character is conflict. These were phrases we were taught to repeat back at Academy of Art University over and over and over again so that we could identify it when we see it. And I think audience members instinctually detect this. They know when a story is doing something right. And that's what my show is all about, is identifying when people do it right. This is not a show about dogging on anything or shitting down any train. There's plenty of shows that will do that, and they'll do it better than I will. And in many ways, I think the Silver Surfer character is sort of about what this show is about, which is about finding the positivity in things. And this show deserves to be watched today. I've watched the first 3 episodes of this show 3 times now because I love it so much in preparation for this video. Because as these guys are talking, and it's clear that there's going to be some kind of subterfuge at some point, even though the Kree and the Skrulls have both sworn to learn from the Master and learn to find peace. At the moment, Silver Surfer takes their weapons away and shows them that with his mind he can dissolve them on this planet. That something about this planet has a relationship to the mind and the soul and the spirit. Specifically in the quest for peace. And as soon as they're all having this little nice introduction, the Watcher appears, and the Watcher warns that Galactus is coming to this planet. The Watcher himself acknowledges that Zenlaw has this massive importance to the rest of the universe, and that if it was to be snuffed out by Galactus, essentially the universe as a whole would suffer greatly. And with his warning, Galactus shows up in that moment. So, spoiling the whole first episode, I'm just going to run through this. If you're interested at all at this point, please watch the show and then come back and you can hear me rant some more. Galactus comes, his machine plugs itself into the planet and starts sucking out all the resources. And as the world is falling apart, the Master reaches out to Galactus and pleads and begs for him to let the planet, live. So that the universe may continue to improve. And the Kree and the Skrull are literally examples of what they do. This is a good thing about writing, is when you not only have characters who are involved, who have dreams, personal ambitions, personal goals that they're working toward, and other characters, they all kind of have conflicting goals with each other, but the overarching threat doesn't just threaten the character and their personal goals, but threatens everything they've worked toward, so that the theme of the story is embedded in the character's struggles. If the theme is finding inner peace, and that's exemplified by 2 warring sides, 2 warring factions coming to a truce, and this destruction would inhibit that truce, then that is an example, of how important each character's struggles are, but also how important the struggle for inner peace is, or the struggle for peace amongst people. So this is a very Star Trekian Very Shakespearean kind of situation. It's Star Trek, Shakespeare, and Spider-Man all balled up into one. And it's great. It's fantastic. It's really fantastic storytelling. This is only the first 10 minutes, maybe, the first 8 minutes of the show. And so many characters have been introduced. We care about them already, and already they're in jeopardy, and things are going on. Something that, for some reason, so many TV shows and movies just can't do. And I feel like it's getting harder and harder. And I don't think it's a matter of the stories have been already told. That, to me, is just lazy thinking. There's so many people out there with personal stories. So many people creating great stuff or mediocre stuff who have actual personal stories to tell, but for whatever reason, they're just rehashing and retelling stories that they enjoyed and not telling their personal story. And they're sitting here going, what personal story do I have? You have a personal story. It should come out through these characters. And ultimately, the character's journey is what the focus is. And that's what this show does. Silver Surfer, or Norrin Rad, he's not Silver Surfer yet, watches the Master get knocked out by Galactus. You know, they're using a giant machine, and Galactus essentially fries the machine, blowing the Master back and knocking him out. And Norrin takes the Norrin calls out to the Watcher, says, "Hey, Watcher, come on, help us out here." And Watcher's like, "I can't help. I literally can't help. He's Galactus. I can't help. He's going to devour your planet. I just came to warn you." And he's like, "Well, come on, you must know something that'll help us out." And then, and then the Watcher doesn't say anything, but we hold for a minute, a little dramatic pause. And the next thing we know, Norrin Rad is grabbing the last crystal of the communication device needed. And he takes a ship and he flies up to Galactus and he makes an offer. And he offers to Galactus himself as a herald to go out and find Galactus planets to eat, so long as he spares this planet. And Galactus accepts. And there's this beautiful scene afterward where Norrin Rad and Shalla-Bal have their farewell conversation to each other. And it's really beautiful and it's sweet. And even the way it's shot, the choices are very specific. You know, there's an over-the-shoulder shot looking at Shalla-Bal as she says her last words. And you know this is the last thing Norrin is seeing on this planet. The planet he loves and the woman he loves. The last thing he sees is her crying and telling him that she loves him. And, he tells, as they kiss, Galactus yanks him off the ground and pulls him into space and transforms him right then and there. And it's this really sad moment seeing the girl go, "Well, no, take me with him, don't," even for her, there's something more valuable than just inner peace. There's that personal, emotional need is there. And that's the way humans, at least, exchange knowledge and experiences through personal information. And that's emotional content. Let me tell you, before I even get to Norrin Rad becoming Silver Surfer, what makes this show great is that every single episode gives us a main character who has something personal going on with him. That even if it's not resolved within the given episode, it is still, the events of the episode reflect his inner conflict and his inner desires and concerns. Because once he gets molded by Galactus, essentially Galactus takes Norrin Rad and completely changes him from the inside out. And again, talk about the MCU helping me understand the Silver Surfer show. I've been watching WandaVision. Hey, WandaVision's good. That's a pretty good show. WandaVision covers the superpower transmutation. Or it's not really a superpower. It's a thing that exists, but in the superhero universe, it's a superpower. Galactus has the ability to transmute things. If you've been watching WandaVision, that's essentially what Wanda does to create the WandaVision show. She transmutes an entire town, and rather than turning regular people into green people or something, she turns everyone into a black and white 50s television show. And everyone in this town is stuck like that. But as the show reveals, it's not just that she changed their minds and changed their clothes. She literally morphed whatever they were wearing into the age-appropriate clothing. So this is a process of transmutation where you take the elements themselves, you take them down to the molecular level, and rotate whatever it is they are supposed to be. And this is exemplified when, the character Monica Rambeau enters WandaVision, and she's wearing, a full tack suit with body armor and all this stuff. But when she goes into WandaVision world, her outfit is turned into a nice dress. And when she comes back out, it's not a dress, but when she comes back out, it's like a 70s outfit. It still stays a 70s outfit, but when she shoots it, it stops the bullets because it's made out of the exact same material. It's just been completely transformed. So essentially that's what Galactus does. He not only makes Norrin into the Silver Surfer, he makes him from a man who's flesh and blood and who looks like me. I mean, Norrin interesting because he easily looks like he's either Asian or Indian. He looks like like me, like a mixed person. Most people seeing this might think I am just white or Mexican or something. I'm actually Hawaiian and Samoan and Chinese and white and a couple different kinds of white. But it's quite a dense mix of ethnicities going into me. And that's kind of what Silver Surfer looks like. He looks like you could cast him as almost any race. As long as it just had that bald head, you're not going to be wrong. And that process is painful, though. So when we getting back to what transmutation is and what it's doing, Galactus transmutes Norrin into this silver-bodied thing that does not need to eat and does not need to sleep. And he simply draws his life energy from the universe itself. The universe is filled with energy going everywhere. Cosmic radiation, all sorts of energy. And if Silver Surfer was wounded somehow, he could simply pull the light energy from a light bulb and restore his health. Which he does. He does do that. So stuff like that is fascinating and fantastic. And it's the speech, really, that Galactus gives that makes this such a incredible sequence. Because Galactus' speech in this first episode is so beautiful and special. He has such an epic biblical way of speaking. While the Zen law people sound like they're something out of Buddha, Galactus sounds like he's the biblical God. The biblical God that wiped the earth clean. That's the way he sounds. And again, language. So in terms of the writing, we have great character writing, great conflicts, keeping the story alive and keeping the story moving. Character, conflict, fluidity of story, all of that's working for this show. And also the dialogue, the character dialogue is distinctive. It all belongs in this world and in this show. People complain about the Star Wars movies and how they sound weird and they talk weird. But when they don't sound like that and they don't talk weird and you see how that sounds in the sequels, you go, that's not a Star Wars movie when they do a Yo Mama joke. Because that's not the language of Star Wars. Okay? That's not the language of Star Wars. So when you hear it, you know it. Because this is an instinctual part of you that works because you know the mathematics that goes into making something that you enjoy. So when you see it not being there, you identify it. It's there without any question. So the strength of this show is not only do they speak, not only the strength of Silver Surfer, the show, is not only do they speak in a clear and beautiful language, but it is strengthened by very good character development and very good dialogue that not only sounds beautiful, but is moving the story forward in an emotional way. And I think my favorite line in Galactus' speech while he's morphing Norrin into Silver Surfer's, "Even your mind is a new page on which I shall write." And I was like, whoa, that's fucking badass. And then you see Galactus opens his hand and Silver Surfer stands up, the complete Silver Surfer body. "No weapons shall harm your shielded body." And I'm like, whoa. It's such a cool speech. Something that on the level of which I think the last speech from a superhero movie that got me is still from the original Superman movie, where Jor-El says his last words to Kal-El before sending him to Earth. And it's a very heartfelt speech. And this is the opposite of that. This is like a very imposing, aggressive speech that is essentially about the complete destruction of Norrin, but the complete birth of the Silver Surfer. And he is like almost childlike. He's a person at his beginning, but he's born with this, I serve Galactus and I look for this and I do that. And he's almost a robot, but not. He's almost a machine, but he's not. He's still a person. And now he is Galactus's herald to go out and find worlds for Galactus to devour. But he at the cost of himself. So although he dreamt about traveling the world or traveling the universe and doing all this stuff, he's gonna follow his dreams, but not as himself. So he will not get to, as Norrin, enjoy what he has always wanted. And it's a very tragic story, but it also, the victory is that he gets to save his planet. So, what a beautiful first episode. I mean, the first episode by itself gets me. I'd say the origin of Silver Surfer is actually a 3-part episode, so we get 2 more parts. The next 2 episodes are about Silver Surfer waking up and realizing he's Norrin and turning on Galactus as his enemy. But it's a complicated relationship because essentially he, as Silver Surfer, which is how he identifies himself from that point on, he is always going to be in some ways the child of Galactus, but they will always be at odds. So that is very Greek. That's very much like Zeus and Kronos. Kronos believed that from a prophecy that, his son would overthrow him. And so out of fear, he tried to kill his son when he was born. But a few, wise gods got Zeus out of the way. And it's one of those snake eats itself situations where if he had not tried to kill his son would not come back and try to kill him. And that same tragic relationship is here with Galactus and Silver Surfer, where Silver Surfer can't stop Galactus a few times from eating planets, but when it comes to Earth, which circles back to Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, the Silver Surfer episode of going to Earth has nothing to do with Fantastic Four at all, but it's still a good episode, and it's still a great episode for Silver Surfer and his transformation. In many ways, I've just talked about this first episode and the strength of the writing, but the entire first season is fantastic. It's a really fantastic first season. Well, there's only one season, but it's excellent. Like, if you're just looking for excellent nerdy stuff to watch The Silver Surfer. If you are a filmmaker and you want to study something to learn how to write, watch The Silver Surfer, because this is what fucking modern television is missing. Modern television is missing this old school way of doing things where you are trying to make something universal for everybody. There's nothing wrong with specificity, and there's nothing wrong with making a political film, but I think, frankly, this current generation of SJWs is more self-serving and more Nazi-like and more self-interested than anything else. I think the further we go in that direction of writing, actually the further we're going to get from actual equality. You're trying to, I don't like what people are doing today in terms of expressing themselves, you know what I mean? Something's wrong. There's more of a sick depravity coming out of modern storytelling these days that, to me, has more to do with revenge than about enlightenment. It's very disgusting to me, where I just think, you know what, yes, we do need people to fight the good fight, but it's important to fight that fight the correct way. And to me, Silver Surfer exemplifies how to fight that fight the correct way, how to speak to an audience without condescending to them and without yourself being outdated. You know, because this show really depends on watching the MCU or reading comic books for a long time and knowing what's going on. But outside of that, the show has very good values and expresses them in a very smooth way. You know what I mean? And I think we need more of that 90s spirit. I mean, even if society is behind the curve, 90s television was very forward and progressive. I grew up with, you know, black superheroes. You know, I grew up with, okay, I didn't have a lot of Latin superheroes, but Latin TV shows. All this stuff was happening on TV and in movies, even if they were independent and low budget. And just presenting characters of various races who show you that kind of Atticus Finch level of being. That is what's uplifting. That is what lifts everybody up when they have an example of what good should look like. What should good look like? It's not enough to just say, how are things right now? Because things are always shitty right now. What should things look like? What should people aspire to be? And the Silver Surfer show does that. It says, what should we aspire to be? And it showcases what strength is, what the value of, you know, inner peace is. It's, you know, the combination of philosophy with character development. You know, character development is simply how we develop as people. Most of us develop as people the way these characters are. That knowledge of self that you have as a writer is imbued upon your characters. So if you're not aware of yourself or how people are, then your characters are not going to react quite right. They're always going to seem kind of odd and going to have that weird vibe that doesn't feel natural. And again, the political spin ultimately leaves the human being out of it. Because human beings aren't perfect, but politics demands perfection. And to me, politics can only go so far when it comes in media. And I feel like Silver Surfer's philosophical goal of being above the human condition and trying to get the human condition to raise itself, that is powerful and emotional. And he himself is gripped with the agony of the worlds he's brought to destruction because of being turned into Silver Surfer. And every episode deals with that in a way that's doesn't feel repetitive. It feels fresh. He is moving as a character from episode to episode. So you're not just seeing him grieving every episode. I think that's another problem with television. They think, oh, a character has a problem, and it's just that same problem all the fucking time, and they never grow, and they never change, and we just drag it on for episode after episode. And it's just kind of like, well, what are you doing then? If that's what you want to do, you know, you can tell a lot in a short amount of time. But to drag it on just for the sake of having episodes, to me, is lazy writing and just does not show your commitment to giving us a good character who moves. That character movement is everything, and this character changes from episode to episode. Even if he's, you know, stricken with the guilt, he is fighting that guilt. You know, he's in his own 12-step program every single episode, trying to right the wrongs. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to do a couple shout-outs, because there are some actors in here that I think deserve some note. James Blendick plays Galactus. Now, here's an actor who I don't have any pictures for. Very hard to find a picture for him, but his voice as Galactus is so epic. I thought that he was the Kingpin from the Spider-Man cartoon, but it's not. But he was in this show called Mythic Warriors. I never saw it, but if you've seen it, Yoo-hoo. X-Men as Apocalypse. He was in the 90s X-Men cartoon as Apocalypse. He was in Tommy Boy, Bionic Woman, Star Wars, the original radio drama. Great voice. That voice of Galactus is so distinctive and so epic. I wish it could be the voice whenever they do actually do this movie. And if this show, if you should for some reason be watching this, Kevin Feige, just adapt Silver Surfer word for word, line for line, from these first 3 episodes of this show. The first 3 episodes of this show would make a fantastic movie. You could get the shittiest director, as long as he has a mild sense of how to direct a cast and crew, to treat these shows as as an animatic. Treat these shows as an animatic and do it line for line, exactly the same. Use the same exact audio for all I care, and you will have a fantastic movie. There's no need to change anything in this show. This would be a great live action movie as is. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus, like, come on. Like, it's just like, it's right there. Well, there should be no problem here. Also, let's see, who else do I want to shout out? John Nevine, who plays Eternity, who shows up in later episodes, was in The X-Files. It's a well-manicured man. Fifth Element, Star Trek The New Generation, Urban Legend. We have Paul Esamir as Silver Surfer, who is going to be a nobody with Saul Goodman. That's coming out this year, I believe. Paul was also in Warehouse 13, Degrassi, Good Will Hunting, and a bunch of other stuff I've never seen. And I want to shout out to Tara Pressling as Nova from Star Trek Discovery, Handmaid's Tale, The Expanse, Elizabeth Shepard as Infinity from Damien Omen 2, Poltergeist Legacy, Tales from the Crypt Keeper, Aaron Tager as the Master, who was in Are You Afraid of the Dark? He was in X-Men, the movie, as the MC at the very end when they're on Ellis Island. Goosebumps, Heroes Reborn, Gary Crawford's Thanos is fantastic. That Thanos, I'm telling you, if Silver Surfer is done in the past, you could do it right now. You could do our Thanos as young Thanos, acting like the comic book Thanos, and it'd be fantastic. And that guy's in Warehouse 13, Resident Evil 2, the game, Free Willy, the TV show, Babar, the TV show. Really wonderful cast, really wonderful voices done for this show. It's something to say. When you watch an animated show and the voices don't quite feel right, that's one thing. But when they feel great, you know the great direction is happening. Really fantastic cast. What a great show. Please check it out. Kevin Feige, if you should watch this, just make the same thing. Just adapt these first 3 episodes exactly as they are, and you're going to have a fantastic film. So, that being said, check out The Silver Surfer. That's all I got to say for today. Maybe I'll check out the comic books and do a little comic book reaction if you guys are interested in that. And as I always say, if you like this show, please remember, don't like, don't subscribe, and don't comment. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.